Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So with one pre-season friendly down and 8 to go this summer, we are finally starting to get a look at just how Jurgen Klopp might be looking to line his side up for the start of the Premier League campaign in a few weeks' time. Now, I'm not suggesting that either of the starting 11s that played against Chester are anywhere near the team that will get fielded against West Ham on opening day, but I think it is interesting to see, what plans the manager's got, where he wants certain players to be functioning within the team, the youngsters that might be putting themselves forward, and some of the players that have been on the fringes for the last couple of years that might force their way back into the first team. So with that in mind, I am going to have a go at predicting Liverpool's starting 11 for the start of next season. Now, it's worth remembering, this is very much the 11 that I think is pretty much going to be playing for that opening game against West Ham. It's not the team that I think will be, our go-to 11 for the whole of the season. I think there's a lot of things that will change, especially with things like players coming back from the World Cup as well, and some players might underperform, some players might overperform as the season goes on. But looking ahead, this is right now exactly how I think this team will line up against West Ham on August the 12th. So first of all, you've got Loris Karius in goal. Right now, I think he is quite simply the best goalie in the squad. I don't think Simon Mignolet's got a future at Liverpool. Danny Ward doesn't seem to have ever really impressed Jurgen Klopp. He did have a great loan spell at Huddersfield, but last season he never really got a look in, and having seen him play that 45 minutes against Chester, obviously, as I said in the post-match video, he wasn't challenged that much, but he didn't really look up to much in terms of his distribution or anything like that. I think Karius offers much more than that in terms of his game, and I think at the moment it doesn't look like we are going to sign a replacement. Now again, it's worth prefacing this with the fact that this video takes into account the idea that we won't sign anyone. There are possibilities that we will be bringing in new players and stuff like that, but at the moment it does very much look like Loris Karius is going to be Liverpool's #1 keeper come the start of next season, and I just think, I think he deserves another go. Every single goalie makes errors. This World Cup has proved that. Muslera is a pretty good goalie. He does exactly what Karius did in a Champions League final, but in a World Cup quarter-final of just, batting it up above his head. David De Gea has made a clanger this tournament already, so all goalies make errors, and the most important thing is how they bounce back from it. And I think Loris Karius, to me, strikes me as the kind of fella who might actually come from this a much better player. So I'm crossing my fingers that he turns out really well, and I think it's really looking really likely at the moment that he will be Liverpool's goalie come the start of next season. And at the end of the day, when you rule out that Champions League final, he was also part of a very strong defensive unit towards the end of last season, and you cannot underestimate his part in that. So moving on to that defensive unit, which was so fantastic towards the end of last season, there aren't many surprises here. I don't think you'll be surprised to know it's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. I think it's fairly nailed on that it's going to be him. He is very much the undisputed best right back at Liverpool at the moment. I think the defensive side of his game improved so much last season, especially in that second half when Liverpool really improved as a defensive unit. Obviously, earlier on we knew that he was great bombing forward. He had a great cross on him. He was good in terms of goals as well. He offered a little bit of end product in the final third, but there were always questions about his discipline defensively, his ability to tackle, his ability to read the game, and I thought that improved so much towards the end of the season that by the time we got to those latter Champions League games, he was one of Liverpool's best players and one of the reasons we looked so good defensively. So I think he is absolutely fantastic, and at the age of, I think it's 19, the kid is only going to get better this season, and that is a frightening prospect if you are not a Liverpool fan, and a really exciting prospect if you are. I think the only reason that he might not start on the opening day is because of the World Cup and the fact that should England get to the final, and even now that they're in the semi-final, he's only going to get back from his holidays about a week before the season starts. Obviously, all the players get that predetermined 3-week holiday where they are doing exercises, they are keeping themselves up to speed to make sure their fitness doesn't drop off too much or anything like that. But it's not like he will have been taking part in pre-season friendlies. He might not be match fit, and I think at the age of 19, Liverpool have been very careful to manage the player's fitness and make sure that, we don't burn him out now in a way that's going to affect him later on in his career. So it's possible for that West Ham game. I think when he arrives back at Melwood, Jurgen Klopp might take a look at him and think, take the weekend off, have an extra week's preparation, and then you can come back into the side. So while I think he is going to be Liverpool's right back for most of the rest of next season, it might be possible that I think maybe Klein comes in to replace him on opening day. I don't think it's going to be Joe Gomez, because I think his future very much lies at centre-back for Liverpool now, and I think we are going to try and make sure that whenever he does play, it's in a centre-back role now to make sure he gets used to it, rather than switching in between right back and centre back, because I don't think that is conducive to the player's development at all. So I think unless, you know, Trent gets injured and Klein can't play all the games, it's highly unlikely that Joe Gomez will be playing any games at right back. So maybe Klein starts on opening day, but I think going forward, the starting 11 absolutely has Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. And then at centre back, you've got Dejan Lovren. He's really massively improved since Virgil van Dijk arrived in the side. Like I said, he was part of that really impressive defence towards the back end of last season. He's had a really impressive World Cup as well. I think it's good to see him and a few other Liverpool players in that England side going so far in the tournament, because I think it really helps in terms of the players' mental strength and the fact that if we want to be going back in for cup tournaments next season, they can feel less like, you know, maybe that the Champions League was a fluke. They don't look at that and think, oh, we'll never repeat that again, because everything was like a perfect storm of fantastic circumstances. You got players like Henderson and Trent and Dejan Lovren who can say, no, I got to the latter stages of the World Cup as well. I'm good enough to deal with these kind of situations on a regular basis. So I think that will really improve Dejan Lovren as a footballer, and he's already improved massively over the last few months. And I also think it just looks like we're really unlikely to sign any new centre-backs. There's been talk of, I think, Vida. There's been talk of Yerry Mina. There's never really been talk of anyone who's actually going to challenge Lovren for a starting spot in the side. So I think he is nailed on to play centre-back on the opening day of the season. And next to him, it is almost definitely going to be Virgil van Dijk. He is very much an obvious inclusion. He's back in pre-season training today, so he's going to be more than ready. And he just makes those around him so much better. You know, if you're feeling nervous about KARIUS or about Lovren or about Trent being too young in the side or anything like that, just say to yourself that we will have Virgil van Dijk next to them, and everything becomes so much calmer. You know, you could have the Chuckle brothers playing on the right side of defence, but you put Virgil van Dijk next to them on the left and they will be absolutely fine. So he will be nailed on to start the first game of the season unless some horrible injury befalls him, God forbid. And then completing the defence, of course it's going to be Andrew Robertson. He already looks fit. He was really sharp in that game against Chester. You know, obviously he's not 100%, no one is, but it certainly looks like his fitness hasn't dropped off at all over the summer. He looks ready. He's going to have all these pre-season friendlies, which he didn't have last season. It's worth mentioning he came in during the US tour or something like that, so he didn't really have that much time to prepare and get up to speed with the Jurgen Klopp way of things or anything like that. So I think, again, he is the best left back in the league as well at the moment. I think that is undisputed, not just at Liverpool, but in the whole of the Premier League. There's no one better than him, and he is absolutely perfect for Liverpool's system and a fan favourite as well. So he is nailed on to start. And then moving on to the midfield, I think at the very base of it, you've got Fabinho. Now, I did say in my video yesterday that he looked a little bit rusty against Chester, you know, slightly off the pace and things like that. But the good thing is he will have a full pre-season. That was, like I said, one of 8 games that he will get to get up to speed. And I think with Henderson coming back late from the World Cup, it's highly unlikely that Henderson will be playing in that first game, because I think he's got a slightly questionable injury record, Henderson. It sometimes takes him a while to come back. So I think Jurgen Klopp will be keen to make sure that the player has plenty of time to recuperate, plenty of time to get himself back up to speed. And Fabinho is hardly a huge drop-off in quality. So I think he absolutely starts in that defensive role. And I think, you know, he's a proper defensive midfielder. He gets the odd cheeky foul in here and there, which I think is important. You know, when you think about when we're playing against West Ham or Crystal Palace or Brighton or Leicester in those opening 4 games of the season, it's worth mentioning those are the teams we're going to be playing when considering the kind of lineup that we're going to go in with at the start of the season. It will probably be a very attacking team that we kick off the season with. I think Fabinho will be important in that whenever we maybe overcommit against those teams, put too many men forward, Fabinho will probably sit back, and when the other teams counter-attack, he's got, like I said, that cheeky foul in him. His legs are long enough that he can occasionally just say to a referee, oh no, I went for the ball, you know, I thought I could get it, I just didn't quite reach, when actually he's just scything down players for the fun of it. So I think he will be hugely important for Liverpool, and he will start at the base of that midfield. And next up in midfield, you've got Liverpool's brand new number 8 sitting next to Fabinho. It is, of course, Naby Keita. I mean, if you didn't see the post-match video I did for the game against Chelsea yesterday, then do check it out. I thought that Keita just looked already like an absolutely incredible footballer, and you can say all you want that it's only Chester. You know, you can only beat the team in front of you, and he looked absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to see him tear it up in the Premier League, which I'm absolutely sure that he will do. Again, he's got another 8 games where he can get himself up to speed, get his fitness there, get himself used to the Klopp way. It looks like he's already used to that system. You know, Jurgen Klopp said that when he played with RB Leipzig, it was a similar philosophy in terms of the way they play football, so he already understands what his role is in the team, so it's not going to take too much for that. So I think the idea that Naby Keita's got another 8 games to get even more up to speed is frightening if you are a West Ham fan, because I think he could be an absolute demon in that opening game at Anfield. I think it is interesting to see How Liverpool line up with Naby Keita, certainly next to Fabinho as well, because he did play, I think, the most withdrawn role in the midfield. He had Ryan Kent and James Milner either side of him. He was essentially playing as the number 6. Obviously, against Chester, there's no one really doing a defensive job in midfield or anything like that, but he was the furthest back, and I think it's interesting. Obviously, I think Fabinho will be the most withdrawn player, but whether Keita maybe plays in a double pivot and Liverpool play closer to maybe a 4-2-3-1 or even a 4-2-4 rather than a 4-3-3, and have a midfielder that's just got license to roam forward and do whatever they want and don't really do any of the engine room jobs in the middle of the park. It remains to be seen, but I think Naby Keita, he looks accomplished in any role. Wherever we put him on the pitch, I think he'll be absolutely fantastic for Liverpool. And then the final midfield spot, this is where it's really interesting, because like I said, I think for those opening games, especially those opening 4, you don't really want a workman-like midfield. You want one that's got a little bit of creativity, one that's got goals in it as well, and one that's really going to contribute and help out that front 3. So with that in mind, I think we're going to start with Adam Lallana. Now, it's an interesting one, obviously, with him missing out the game against Chester through illness. We haven't actually seen him so far during pre-season, so it remains to be seen just how fit he is, just how sharp he is, and just how much he's got to offer Liverpool at this stage in his career. But I think at the moment, he is the best possible option for those kind of games. Like I said, I think we need an attacking midfielder. If it wasn't for Oxlade-Chamberlain's injury, I think he'll be absolutely nailed on to start. If you ask me, if Ox wasn't injured as well, I think that would basically be Liverpool's first choice midfield. Fabinho at the base, Keita in the 8, and then Ox basically acting as a withdrawn number 10. But with his injury, Liverpool are going to have to improvise a little bit there, and I think it's a really good opportunity for Adam Lallana to take and make that role his own, because I think last season, his problem was not just that he was injured, but whenever he came back, he never really got an option to build up his match fitness, because at the end of the day, a not entirely match sharp Adam Lallana had absolutely nothing on an Oxlade-Chamberlain who was absolutely bang in form at that stage of the season. So this is a really good opportunity for him. I think it's almost a make or break season, or even a make or break few months for him at Liverpool at the moment, because like I said, his career sort of went downhill at the club last season, but we know that Klopp absolutely loves the player. Like I said, he suits the kind of football that we're going to want to play in those opening games. I think I was tempted to say James Milner or maybe Gino Wijnaldum, but I just think that neither of them really have enough going forward. They are more box-to-box players, and Liverpool really wants someone who's going to play a kind of number 10 role, who is going to get into that opposition box more often and try and help out the attack. And I think Adam Lallana has a really big opportunity here to nail down a spot in the first team, so fingers crossed he takes it. And then the front 3, this is one where there aren't really any surprises at all, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, unless, like I said, we do play a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-2-4 formation at the start of the season. I think it is entirely possible, if Solanke blows everyone away, or if Sturridge blows anyone away, or even Origi or Ings has an incredible pre-season, maybe we start with 2 strikers. But at the moment, I think it is very much going to be the front 3, and it's probably going to be the front 3 that plays the end of last season. Mo Salah, obviously, he went out of the World Cup at the group stage. He's going to be back for the tour of the USA, so he will be more than ready to tear it up. I mean, he looked a little bit off it in the World Cup. Obviously, that shoulder injury didn't really help, but I think he's had plenty of time to recuperate now to actually get over the injury completely. And I think once he's had those few games in his belt, they are obviously going to be against very highbrow opposition once it gets to the USA tour, end of things in the pre-season tour. So hopefully he can build himself up there, and I think obviously he starts. I think whether, a 70% fit Mo Salah almost definitely starts, because he's just a fantastic footballer, and I, for one, cannot wait to see Mo Salah playing football for Liverpool again, and more importantly, Mo Salah hitting the back of the net at Anfield for Liverpool again. And then next to him, I think it's going to be Firmino. I mean, he will only have had a few weeks to get up to speed. He's probably going to come back either 2 weeks or about 10 days before the start of the season, so he's probably going to have some sort of intensive summer plan in place, or he's going to have a very intensive pre-season when he gets back, because he won't have that much time to get ready for the West Ham game. But like I said, unless Sturridge, who has been good, he was good against Chester, or Solanke, who was also pretty impressive, I thought, against Chester, unless they really blow us away in pre-season to the point where you think, actually, I wouldn't mind you starting against West Ham, and that would be pretty big, because Firmino is so integral to Liverpool's system. He's so important that if you are going to drop him out the side, you need a really good reason for it. I think at the moment it's quite likely that as long as Firmino comes back, fit and healthy when he comes back from his holiday, then I think he absolutely starts in that number 9 role. And then finally, Sadio Mane, who recently put to bed all speculation of him going to Real Madrid. He said he's happy at Liverpool, which is really good news. I think he will be the final player starting in the starting 11 on that first day of the season against West Ham. I think he is getting back at the same time as Salah, so that's important as well. He's going to have plenty of time to get himself up to speed like Mo Salah. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Sadio Mane performs this season, because I think, Mo Salah, he's going to get a lot more attention put on him by defenders now. Everyone knows that he's one of the best players in the world. It started happening in the Premier League games towards the back end of last season, and I think it's certainly going to happen in those opening games against teams like West Ham and Brighton and Crystal Palace and Leicester, who are going to sit deep and defend. They are probably going to put about 3 men on Mohamed Salah. They're also going to be wary of Roberto Firmino, who I thought was really impressive last season, and I think Mane just slipped under the radar because of those two a little bit, and I think especially with Naby Keita as well, creating even more space on the pitch with his movement, with the way he reads the game, and with the way that people have to gravitate towards him to try and stop him getting on the ball as well. I think Sadio Mane is going to have a lot more space next season, and I think if he continues to improve in that creative role, in that kind of wing 10 role where he's ever so slightly more withdrawn than the other two members of the front three, then I think he could become a real force for Liverpool. And obviously with those teams that are going to sit deep against us early on in the season, it will be really important to have a creative force in that front three as well. So that is how I think Liverpool are going to line up for the season. I think it's an incredibly strong lineup. Obviously there are a few more players to come back in. I think that once Ox comes back from injury, he probably plays that role in midfield. I think it obviously depends on the opposition. If we're up against Man United away or Chelsea at home or anything like that, then maybe we don't have Lallana in midfield and we have a Wijnaldum or a Milner or maybe even a Jordan Henderson alongside Keita and Fabinho. That all remains to be seen, but that is definitely the side that I think at the moment is likely to start in that first game against West Ham. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to make sure you get notifications when all new videos come out. Don't forget to check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll see you soon for hopefully some transfer news or post-match reaction to Liverpool against Tranmere. Bye for now.